You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop. And now the first descent. One story to open the night. Just enough to crack the door and let something in.
There's a line beneath the city that no one talks about, by Tiny Swamp. Case number 1982-045. Subject, Jack Sullivan. Occupation, private investigator. Evidence, cassette tape, T-045, journal fragments, subway schematics. Authorities deny the tape's authenticity. Judge for yourself. Sounds of tape click and slight background hiss. This is Jack Sullivan. The date is March 3, 1982. I'm sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Thompson regarding the disappearance of their daughter, Emily. Let's begin. Can you tell me when you last saw Emily? Mrs. Thompson, nervous, soft-spoken. She takes the same route every time. 74 TH Street, Broadway Station, the 7 train to Times Square, then the 1 train uptown. It's routine. She's done it 100 times. No, just Lisa. They were studying together for a college midterm. Lisa said she walked Emily to the station herself. That was around 10:15. Do you recall what Emily was wearing that evening? Mr. Thompson. She had her blue backpack, too. The one I got her for her birthday. Lisa said she was holding it when she went down the steps to the platform. Jack pauses briefly, voice softens. Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson. Journal entry, March 3, 1982. Met with the Thompsons. Emily was last seen in Jackson Heights, headed toward 74 TH Street, Broadway Station around 10:30 p.m. She never made it home. The parents are shaken. The mother mentioned something odd, a train Emily claimed to have seen that didn't look right. Probably just a tired girl seeing shadows. Still, it's noted. Recording number 2. I talked to an old janitor who works nights. He told me about a ghost train that rides through abandoned lines when no one's watching. Said it doesn't just carry passengers, it takes them. Backslash. Backslash, silence, backslash. That sounded like a train. But no line runs this deep. Not anymore. Backslash, long pause. Jack exhales, backslash. Backslash, tape click, backslash. Backslash. I keep circling the same possibilities: abduction, trafficking, maybe even some kind of sick ritual cult operating out of the tunnels. That's the tunnel I found. I'm not saying I believe in ghost trains. But I am saying there's a pattern of disappearances tied to this stretch of track going back over 70 years. Backslash. Backslash, low, tired voice. He sounds conflicted, backslash. This is Jack. I'm going back to the platform tonight, during the off hours. Still think there's a real person behind this, a killer, not a spirit. But if something's using these abandoned tunnels to grab people, I'm gonna find it. Backslash, tape clicks. Soft hiss. Ambient echo of an empty subway platform. Jack's voice is steady, tired, backslash. Jack. Pause. You can hear Jack shifting on a bench. Backslash. Backslash, new tape click. The hiss is heavier now. Distant squeaking echoes from the tunnel, backslash. I'm hearing something. Just off the edge of the platform. Real faint, sounds like wheels dragging. Not fast. Sluggish. Metallic. Backslash, the squeaking gets louder. Jack inhales sharply, backslash. Jack. Jesus. It's just some damn homeless guy. Pushing a shopping cart along the rail bed. Backslash. Jack, serious now. Closer this time. And, no scheduled service until 5 a.m. Jack, low. I see lights. Backslash, there's a building hum, the faint sound of metal gliding on rails. It grows louder. The whistle sounds again, sharper now, backslash. Jack, awed, skeptical. Jack, more intense. The windows are all fogged, but there's this yellow light shining through. Like it's lit by candles. Long pause. Then, a mechanical hiss. The train door opens. A moist thump, like old rubber gaskets giving way. Jack gasps. Backslash, silence. The background hum changes, now more ambient, like home. Jack's voice grows distant, dreamy, backslash. Jack. Oh my God. It's the house. Our old place in Queens. But this can't be, it smells like her perfume. Backslash, distant background, the faintest wet, organic squelching. It doesn't overpower, just sits under everything, subtly wrong, backslash. Jack, laughing softly. You kept the couch. I thought we tossed that thing years ago. He walks deeper inside. Footsteps fade slightly. Then. Backslash, the train door hisses shut. A dull wet thunk follows, final and heavy, backslash. Backslash, recorder still running. Jack's voice is dreamy, caught in the hallucination, backslash. A longer pause. Something shifts in his tone, from fond to confused. You can't be here. No. No, this isn't real. This. Backslash, shuffling. A chair scrapes, but it's wet. A sinewy tearing sound as he rises, backslash. Jack, horrified. Where am I? Is this, the train? Jack, disbelieving. Jack. The seats, they're not seats. They're ribs. Cushioned ribs. The holding poles feel like tendons. They're flexing. Backslash, he touches something. A wet tack as his fingers stick to it, backslash. The lights, those yellow lights, they're not bulbs. They're sacks. Glowing, fleshy sacks. Backslash, the ambient sound swells, a wet mechanical thrum as if the train itself is waking up. Or feeding, backslash. Jack, panicking. No, get me the fuck out of here. Backslash, he starts banging on what was once a door, now it sloshes like muscle under skin, backslash. Jack, screaming. Next stop. Wind rushes. Jack gasps, feet pounding. Then a sudden, wet thud, a fleshy, bone-snapping crunch. The wind continues, Jack, gasping. Darkness. I'm still falling. I can't see. Sudden impact, a hard, wet floor. Jack wheezes, Jack, barely audible. He exhales. A faint, wet sound echoes. Like something feeding. The phrase, next stop, has been noted in 2 additional missing persons cases from 1984 and 1986. NYCTA formally denies all supernatural associations.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I've been squatting in a condemned high-rise. These are the rules I follow to stay safe, by Christian Wallace. I'm not homeless. I have a home. I just don't own it. But it's mine and I work to keep it. Every city has its fair share of abandoned buildings to squat in, but usually you gotta deal with either cops or shitty neighbors. The Andale high-rise has neither. Police stay away, so do the locals. As a stranger from out of town, I stumbled across the place on my first night in the city and thought it a little strange that a 28-story tower block had been left to rot. Every window black. Every light in the courtyard smashed. No cars in the lot. No booth for a guard. Not even barbed wire on the fence. Barely half a mile from a playground filled with shouting drunken teenagers, but none of them strayed in the direction of Andale. No fires or music or bottles hurtling through the air. It was silent. Meanwhile, the empty shaft loomed above, cables whistling in the wind. I've learned not to linger by it. If you look up, you'll sometimes see something ducking out of the way, pulling its head through the doors before you get a good look. It finds it awfully funny, even tries to make a game out of it, like peekaboo. Play too much though and it starts to pop up elsewhere. Any open door becomes an invitation. Sent more than a few people running for their lives in the middle of the night, but bad news for them. That thing is more than free to leave this place if it's part of a game. If you ask about Andale, most people just shrug or laugh. Kids'll talk about it same way they talk about any haunted house. Difference is no one dares anyone to go up there. No one uses it to get pissed or high. No one sneaks into the basement to have a risky little fuck. No one hides their stashes there. It has all the hallmarks of your classic urban legend, only people actually stay away. They'll laugh and joke and tell scary stories, but they treat the soil it's on like it houses a radioactive leak. And the council, I'm surprised they haven't knocked it down, but they, out of everyone in the city, have the most to lose by talking about it. They built it in the mid-50s as government housing. Only a lot of the young mothers who moved in there found their children's health taking a turn for the worse. Started with newborns. Babies that wouldn't wake after a peaceful night's sleep. The kind of deaths that got written off as either negligence or abuse, screaming teenage girls hauled off to prison on the words of doctors who didn't give a shit. It's always the mother's fault in some people's eyes, and these girls had no one to stand up for them. 2 in the first year, 4 in the next, and they kept on coming for every year until it closed. More than a few toddlers starved to death as their parents rotted in the tub from an overdose. Even more were lost when they found their parents' stash, little bodies racked with agonizing fits as their panicked mothers screamed for help. One tripped down the elevator shaft because the doors opened as if the carriage was right there. And those are the ones who were found. Plenty more went missing, written off as runaways. In the end, Andale's reputation as a cursed place got so bad the only way out was to shut the whole thing down. Board it up. Erase it from the records. Pretend it never happened and just forget. You'd think I'd leave, but it's my home. I own it as much as it owns me. People even refer to me as the caretaker now, like they forgot I wasn't always here. Police treat me the same, can you believe that? Any reports of a break-in and they call me on my number to go take a look, like I'm some sort of official. Only other guy who was here as long as me was the philosopher. I don't know his name, just call him that because of the books he left behind. He came here back when the block was still just a place to live, and he stuck around for a few years after its closure. Lots of notebooks in his flat. Thousands of pages talking about child sacrifice made to gods who don't like being named, along with pictures of strange things frozen in ice and medical photos that look fake. At first I thought he came to document the curse. He has dozens of books just recording all the strange things he saw, like birds with too many wings or milk that turned to clotted blood in the bottle. But after going through everything he owned, I found letters to a wife who died in childbirth. He kept her death certificate way at the back of an old-looking box filled with the letters he'd kept writing her long after the date. Written in the web of a spider with 13 legs. Many of them come here with business, something a little like the philosophers. Rituals. Bargains. Things like that. It's not a good idea to interrupt them, or to give them even the slightest hint you might be a problem. Every night I lock my door and wait for Andale's business to finish, and come morning I do a sweep, floor by floor, and clean up whatever's left of the tower block's strange pilgrims. Plenty of places like that, I said. Lots of funny rooms in Andale. People trying to make the most of limited space. Sometimes the walls meet at tight angles, sure. But I don't know what you mean about dark. There's the basement. It's flooded. Can't think of anywhere darker than that. He bit his lip and hesitated for a second or two, as if he was actually contemplating it. I thought about this for a second. His words were vague, but damn if I didn't know what he meant. I took him to a flat on the 8th floor. It was run down like everywhere else, but there was still enough of its old furniture lying around. You can pull open random drawers in there and still see the cutlery people once used. There's even an old analog TV on an old stand. You can perch on what's left of the sofa and stare at that TV and get the feeling you knew the people who lived there once. Run your thumb over the dials on the toaster, the handle of the fridge, or the yellowing plastic of a light switch, and feel an aching loss that creeps up on you out of nowhere. You see, they'd put a cot inside and it's still there, bluebottle flies circling overhead. You can't see inside the cot, not unless you went in and actually pulled the blankets out, but it's been decades and no one has managed it yet. It's dark behind those old blankets, a heavy shadow that dissuades a closer look, like there's something in there no one needs to see, and it spent a long time sat there eating what little light there was. Even with a window in that room, daylight doesn't really filter down. Perfect, the businessman said when he saw it. He gazed around the flat one detail at a time, his head pausing for a moment and a smile creeping across his face as he laid his eyes on the broken light fixture. And the cot, the sight of it, the flies that still circled above faded Winnie the Pooh blankets, it made the breath catch in his throat. Oh, yes, this is good, he told me. Dark like under the bed. You've earned that money. I could have had a dozen men sweep this place and they wouldn't have understood the brief as well as you have. Quietly the man sat down and began to unpack his leather satchel. No pentagrams to be found, although he did unpack 7 strange-looking candles. He caught me looking at them and smiled. Homemade, he said. each one shaped by my hands. I'm not a good artist, but it's the effort that counts. Took forever to rend the wax. Of course, that was the easy part. The hard part was getting the fat to make it. Did you know there can be a surprisingly high level of security around a hospital's medical waste department? I didn't, I replied as he took out some flimsy bits of wood and a few small nails. He oh so carefully began to nail the splinters of wood together into what looked like random shapes. He stopped tapping and smiled once more. "Can I ask what is it you want?" I said. "Everyone who comes here, I don't get the sense it ever works out for them." He looked to the darkness that enveloped the doorway. Shapes could be seen floating past. When I returned the next day, the man's satchel was still where I'd last seen it, propped against one arm of the sofa. The candles had burned down to the very end of the wicks and left a lingering smell that's still there all these years later. And of the man himself, well, in the room with the cot, which still has bluebottle flies orbiting overhead, there is now a shadow burned into the wall. It's blurry and diffused, but vaguely recognizable as a man on his knees, his head pressed to the floor in a gesture of supplication. I've known it to occasionally move, to turn its head and look towards me, at which my temples throb, my ears pop, and a darkness begins to encroach upon the edges of my vision. I never exactly considered that flat to be Disneyland before, but now I avoid it like the plague. Still, it could be worse. Not every ritual ends so cleanly, and at times I've had to personally intervene, something I hate bitterly. If people want to go poking around in the universe's undercarriage, that's their business. It's one thing if I've got to sweep what's left of them up afterwards, but at least that's a one-and-done job. Sometimes it isn't so clean. One guy turned up and told me he'd be a new resident, my neighbor, and we'd get to know each other. A bumbling old man with an upper-class accent and the look of a professor who was down on his luck. He sat up in the room next to mine, and no matter how little I spoke to him, he never really got the hint and kept trying to act like a good friend. Few times I did initiate conversation, it was to tell him the place he'd chosen didn't have much in the way of protection. He pointed to some funny little rashes and told me they were his protection. "This is important work," he growled, an unseen darkness creeping into his voice. "I'm not some ditzy crackhead trying to summon the Baphomet. I'm not looking to get high. This is science. Progress. That is what I am working towards." He stopped, froze in mid-gesture, like I'd said something either profoundly stupid or insightful, or likely a bit of both. He looked at the rashes on his arms that had, by now, started to sprout some of their own strange fruit. When he finally spoke again, it was sly, like a lecherous old man propositioning a nurse. He scuttled off without another word, and for the next few days he set about the building like a furious little honeybee in spring. Poking and prodding, setting trap after trap and cleaning them vigorously of any rats or mice he caught. When I did my morning sweeps, I'd find him hovering over Andale's latest victims, scraping what was left of them into transparent bags for his own purposes. "Don't mind me," he'd mutter. "It's worthless to you, but these poor souls could help me achieve great things." This persisted for another month. He no longer scraped mold or mushrooms off old apartments. He became interested only in meat, and by the time it came to an end, I can say confidently that I have never smelled anything worse than the prickly musty odor that wafted out from under his locked door. It became so bad that I began to wonder if I might have to ask for police help and have him removed when, finally, he simply disappeared from Andale's halls. One morning he was there, annoyingly shooing me out of the way as he lowered jars into the flooded basement, and then the next he was gone and Andale's halls were silent once more. It took 2 days before I decided to just go ahead and break his door down. I kicked at it with a short sharp blow, only to find my leg immediately disappeared through wood that had the texture of sodden cardboard. I freed my foot and tried a different tactic, grabbing the handle and pulling so hard that it simply popped right out of the rancid wooden frame. Free to move, the door swung open with an eerie creak and fetid air, hot and damp, blew out of the room. I never did figure out exactly what it was he was after, although it is not uncommon for my morning sweep to turn up a body, or part of, covered in fungal growths. And I have been known to occasionally catch glimpses of a strange person lowering themselves into the floodwater of the elevator shaft. Of course, I might just be making connections that aren't really there. All sorts of things live in that water. The entire level is flooded, and if something was down there, it'd have free reign over quite a large space. It's a strange world down there. I should know on account of one visitor who gave me a very bad time. I'll call him the fisherman since he came to Andale because of the flooded basement. Saw a photo that's been circulating around for a while now, if you know where to look. God knows who took it and how, but it shows the flooded stairwell leading to the basement, and beneath the brackish surface is a hand that's all out of proportion. Fingers splayed with perfect symmetry like a starfish, it is reaching up out of the depths and resting gently on the third step below the water. Oh no, you've only just caught me, been here barely 10 minutes before you showed up. I was told you'd be willing to help in exchange for a small fee. What sort of help? I asked. Oh, just give me a nudge if any of the lines start moving, he said while pointing to a rod he'd set up beside the basement stairs. The door was propped open and the line led down into the darkness below, water gently lapping just out of sight. Another line had been set up in a corner of the lobby where the floor had been torn away, revealing a hole straight down into the basement. I can't keep an eye on them all at once, you see. I have bells ready, but, well, 2 heads are better than 1. Are you familiar with the primordial ocean? He said. The abyssal waters that God split into light and dark, all that. It's not a physical location, per se, but it does connect to certain bodies of water depending on the time and place. Last recorded manifestation was in a glass of old whiskey underneath a forgotten bar in Mexico City. Some poor fellow knocked it over and didn't notice until the following day when half the bar was suddenly underwater. Quickly rectified, but some of the things swimming in that water were something else, and all from at the bottom of a glass no wider than my wrist. Imagine what we can do with this, he said while gesturing at water by his feet. You think there could be fish alive down there? I asked. Not really, I shrugged. But I'd guess it wants to be left alone. You might be right there, he said while looking at his other rods. I didn't exactly put down any old lure, you know. A tooth from a man who drowned in the sea. A drone collected it off a shipwreck near the Norwegian coast. The fur is actually red algae that was found growing on his bones. I have plenty of these and, well, other things that might appeal to what's on the other side. My research was thorough and expensive. Come on, take a seat. Flat fee, 1,000, just sit here until the sun starts to set. I just have to sit? I asked. I groaned and sat beside him, folding my legs instead of letting them dangle in the water below. Despite my reticence, we stayed like that for several hours. He'd brought lots of food, good homemade stuff, along with plenty of cold beer. We sat there and spoke very little, but we did eat and drink a tremendous amount. Not the kind of thing I do normally, but I was being paid to be there, and I didn't really have anywhere else to be. It was, all in told, a very pleasant afternoon. Until I fell asleep. I decided to go for the stairs. The entire time my heart was in my chest. I had never been caught outside my room at night, not since my first night when I'd slept in the lobby with my coat pulled over me. You don't get lucky twice, not with Andale, so I knew had to be careful. I had to be quiet. My only hope was to go unnoticed. I took to stealth, climbing each floor in perfect silence, hiding in well-known spots at the slightest hint of footsteps, human or otherwise. And yet, despite all this, I somehow made it to the 14th floor alive. Only it was there right at the final hurdle, so close to safety, that I came across something out of my worst nightmare. A woman stood outside my apartment door. Silent. Pale. Dirt-covered fingernails. It was all too often I'd open my door and find muddy impressions on the floor made by a woman's bare feet. Now I knew who left them every night. I couldn't see her face from where I hid, but something about her seemed profoundly familiar. Every now and again, of course, I can't help but check my peephole at night. I never did before that, but now I do. I see her every single time. She looks sad. Hurts me to think of her out there. It ought to be terrifying, but it's more like someone's ripped out my stomach and heart and let all my insides fall out the bottom. Sometimes I wonder about him, figuring we'd probably be about the same age. I'd like to think back and imagine what it would have been like for the two of us to meet as young men, but for some reason whenever I try to remember what my life was like before I came to this city, before I woke up with that coat pulled over me, well, I don't know.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
There is no fear as potent as the fear of the unknown. No monstrous visage discovered yet has been as terrifying as the infinite potential for horror which exists before the mask is removed. And so troubled did I slip beyond mortal understanding, stepping into a world as far forsaken by reason as I was now from life. I was still in the hospital room, but the bustle of nurses and the beeping machines lost their opacity as though I was mired in swiftly descending dusk. It seemed as though every sound was an echo of what it once was, every sight a reflection. With each passing moment, the world was becoming less real. His cloak was black. Not the color black, but its essence. It was as though seeing a tiger after a lifetime of looking at a child's crude drawing and thinking that's all a tiger was. Reality flowed around his scythe like a brush through watercolors, and I could see each elementary particle and time itself sunder across its blade. "You're late." They weren't words. My head ached from the strain of this knowledge as my lateness was burned into my awareness, imparted like an inescapable law of physics as unequivocal as gravity. "We don't have time for the usual speech. Hurry now." I felt myself swept up around him like dirt in a hurricane. Before I knew what was happening, we were outside the hospital, moving at such a frenzied pace that the world around me blurred into a dizzying tunnel of flashing light. I had too many questions, all fighting for attention in the forefront of my brain without any making their way out. "You're quiet." I admire that. Usually people ask too much. "What's the point?" I asked. My voice felt flat and dead compared to his overwhelming substance. How can I try to comprehend something so beyond mortal knowledge? We weren't slowing. If anything, our pace was increasing. I wasn't running, or flying, or anything of that nature. It was more like the rest of the world was moving around us while we stood still. A vague darkness and a heavy damp smell made me guess that we'd gone underground, but I couldn't say for sure. "One question then," I asked. "What else is here besides you?" Troubling thought, but made more so by the growing howl which began reverberating the rocks around me. We still seemed to be descending into the earth, and the air was growing warmer and denser now. The sound continued to mount as though the world itself was suffering. "What I'm here to protect you from." The rock split from a flash of his scythe, and the ground opened further into a sprawling cavern dominated by a subterranean lake. "But I thought you said you were all there is." "No, I said death was all there is." We weren't moving any longer. Light glinted off the scythe from some unseen source and streamed into the lake like a tributary. Once inside, the light didn't reflect or dissipate, but swirled and danced like luminescent oil. The light was taking a life of its own inside the water. The still surface began to churn with the enigmatic energy. It took my scattered mind a long while to realize that I was the energy flowing into the lake. I still felt tangled up with the figure, but we now existed as a beam of light boiling into the water. Something was in the water around me. Hands grabbed me by the legs and began dragging me downward. I was amazed to even discover I had limbs again. They felt so alien to me that it was almost as though this body was not my own. Light flashed from the side, then again. The hands let go, and the howling rose once more. The Reaper was fighting something, although I couldn't make any sense of the battle except for the madness of thrashing water. I'm sorry. I couldn't fight it off. It seemed to be coming from so far away now. We will try again next time. The pressure, the heat, the noise, the hands dragging me into the blinding light. I closed my eyes and screamed. I was free from the water now, but I just kept screaming. I couldn't bear to look at it, whatever had stolen me. Whatever was death but wasn't, whatever even the Reaper could not defeat. Congratulations. He's a healthy baby boy.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
I found it in a cardboard box at the back of a thrift store, sandwiched between broken Walkmans and stacks of scratched CDs. Curiosity, and a price tag of $1.50, convinced me to take it home. I got out my trusty Game Boy. The moment I slid the cartridge in and powered up, the screen crackled. A strange static appeared. It came and went, like it was breathing. Like it was alive. The screen went dark. The word "flicker," written in shaky, childlike font against a pitch-black background appeared. No music. Just the faint hiss of static. By the time I beat the game, I was drenched in sweat. The last level had been a frantic, white-knuckled blur of flashlight beams and desperate sprints down endless hallways. But I won. I fucking won. And then the screen went black. That's when the light started flickering, buzzing, pulsing like a heartbeat gone wrong. Shadows stretched across the walls, twitching and jerking. Then the power cut. In the distance. Then the old lady's bedroom door slammed open. The monster loomed behind her, flickering in and out of sight, feeding off the chaos. I realized then, this wasn't just the monster. It was controlling her, either that or I'd given her too much provigil earlier, using her body as a weapon. Her strength was incredible. I turned and faced the flickering shadow. Remembering the game, I knew I only had one way to fight back. The batteries were dead. I looked through the slatted door. The old lady was slowly making her way towards me. Then, nothing. And then I smelled it. Gasoline. Thick and sickening, seeping under the crack. The old woman's voice hissed through the darkness, whispering threats as she reveled in the idea of burning me alive. Behind her I could see the flicker of the monster. The puppet master. In complete control. The old lady lit a match. And just as the flames were about to lick the doorframe, in that heartbeat, I remembered the batteries from the Game Boy. Hands trembling, I swapped them into the flashlight and flicked the switch. I kicked open the pantry door and just as the monster appeared, Goem. The beam cut through the darkness. The monster screamed, a horrible, broken sound. But it still wouldn't give up. It still tried to grab me. To kill me. I pressed the flashlight harder. The flicker shrieked more and more. Until finally, it shattered into 1,000 shards of static. Vanishing like a bad dream. Now, the Game Boy cartridge is buried deep beneath the floorboards. But sometimes, when the lights flicker just right, I swear it's the monster, waiting for its next game. So, if you find Flicker, don't play it. Because some games don't end. They only begin.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock, knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
Autumn was arriving and I have always wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail when the leaves were showing their full colors. Work was gnashing at my spirit, and in lieu of committing crimes against management, I would let out my frustration in nature where I knew I was at peace. The out-of-doors have always been a part of my life. My father, like his father before him, took me hiking and hunting and fishing my whole life. I've gained a level of respect for nature not many have had the opportunity to experience. The trail had an entrance about half a day's drive away. There was no way I was going to hike the whole trail this time. I only had 3 weeks and I wanted to take it very slowly, and I had to reserve the last few days of my vacation on a plane to visit friends and family out west. If I could hike at least half of the length and grab a bus back to my car, I would be happy. I pulled into the small gravel lot before 10 in the morning and unloaded my gear. Finally, I was free. I threw my pack on and slung my rifle around my shoulder, and I was on the trail. I nabbed a small pole to fish with, too. A collapsible micro pole, for light test fish. Figured I'd rather need it and have it than want it and don't. Hours turned to days and steps became miles. I was on the trail for close to a week and food was now gone. The last can of Spam and my remaining ounce of trail mix was depleted, and I could definitely tell I had lost well over 10 pounds already. Neat, back on track to my healthy weight. Mosquitoes may have played a role, but I digress. Miles flew by and my stomach rumbled. Creeks were few and far apart. I knew my next meal had to have 4 legs and poor luck, and that's exactly what it had. Down my sights was a mighty fat grouse. I lied about the 4 legs. .223 was a pretty large caliber for grouse, but as long as I didn't his center mass, I could save the meat and behead it in one shot, easy peasy. The shot echoed through the valley and the grouse was no more. Unfortunately, I missed his head, but it was a kill shot and the meat was spared. Nightfall came, beautifully. I decided to nab a squirrel earlier and I skinned it. Unfortunately, exhaustion took me, so the squirrel had to wait. Hung from a tree about 30 yards away for predators, I tied the rodent up and went to bed. No fire tonight, too tired. Sleep comes easy to the sounds of nature. Crickets and the bugs, some water in the distance, and the coo of an owl. God damn it. I came to the bottom of a tributary to the stream of endless bounty. Daylight was waning and my stomach was speaking angry German. I pushed on. The stream was around the cut and down the way about an hour, and I had to get there before nightfall if I was going to get a chance to eat in the morning. Finally, I made it to the water. Pissed in it, drank from it, and went to bed. No fire, again, and this time it was cold. I awoke to sounds aplenty. Birds, squirrels, bugs. Slap. I knew it. Slap. Yup. Slap. I reeked. Over a week without a shower, hiking the trail and with critter bits on me, I needed to bathe. Off came the clothes, boots, and beanie and dipped into the stream. It opened into a pond, where I did most of my hygienic ritual. Arms, legs, body, and ass. Especially ass. Trust me, crapping in the woods with mere ferns for rear-end receipts tends to ripen the human experience. Water was cold and the air felt icy after plunging, but it was time to keep going. I had a decent day's hike to continue off-trail until it runs back into the trail. God damn it. Leave it. Fuck. They were out of reach, he'll need to slip in here with me to get them, and that was not happening. I slowly grabbed one, careful to avoid the light beam glowing from the crack in the rocks. I silently rose the flip to the fingertips of the man, where he just gripped it. "Gahia wahahaha," he screamed, throwing it at his friend, hitting him in the eye. Screams flew from the other, followed by tears and wailing. Yeah, flip-flops fucking hurt when thrown. Especially when your eye is already black and swollen. He was without the flop. He had the one, but not the other. He got on his belly once more, peeked into my hiding hole, and saw the other sitting in the beam of light. I had retreated mere inches behind in the pitch black, but if he had to climb in here, I was dead. My rifle was useless in here, and the fact that I fit at all was a miracle, let alone with my pack behind me. His hand was only a foot from my head, reaching for the last slipper. He didn't know it was well out of reach, but so was it to I. I needed to help him, and he needed to not come down here. His hand was in the way of my grabbing it, so I waited until he pulled his hand out, peeked again, and dug his hand further. I had only a second to grab it, and I did. He recoiled his arm, peeked again, and saw it was gone. This didn't bode well for the bruised fellow, as he too threw them out only to get a black eye for doing so. He screamed, grabbed a stone, and dented the other's skull in. He fell, motionless. Sloppy laughter commenced, blood flowing from the skull, and then spunch. Crack. Spleech. The man continued to stomp the other's skull in, the sound of brain matter screamed through his toes. He then bent down, grabbed the raccoon, spit on his dead brethren, and ran down the path laughing and crying all the same. I inhaled deeply, for once I was yet alone to make a small noise. The oxygen revived my horror-stricken body and I sat motionless. The thought kept repeating in my mind, "You must run. 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 In fact, don't thank God." The other man was returning. He must have heard the skull crack open. The steps grew louder, and louder. Fuck. 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 I slid down the boulder. Darkness took the forest. I hid behind the boulder, when the man began to run. Fear once took over yet again, yet I stood still. He kept from the ground and scurried up the boulder where I whence came, laid down, and put his whole upper body down the hole. The man stood back up, broken skull in hand, raccoon in the other. He chuckled and looked at the body of his victim, yelled, "Use paw broke too," and hurled the skull at his dead compatriot, striking his lifeless puddle of head slush. He climbed off of the stone and walked to the body, kicked it at least a dozen times, hooting and hollering and championing his kill. He gave the man one last, bigger kick, this time I could hear the ribs snap. He stepped over him, pulled out his pecker, and pissed on his corpse, laughing as the piss mixed with the brain matter like a hose hitting mud. A zipper zipped and he walked away. 5 steps away, crunch. "Ha!" he shouted. The feral man looked down to see what he had broken, and saw a small, red pack. My aid pack. He broke the weak plastic and broken it. This wasn't here before, he must have thought, because his attention went directly to the skull, and then the hole in the rocks. Oh my fuck, I thought. He knows I'm here. I have to run, now. Exhaustion swept across me. I felt the rush of adrenaline leave me, and the result was a massive crash. I leaned against another tree and fell unconscious. I awoke to flies and stench. Gross, I thought. I had puked on my shoes. I stood up, and instantly felt something was wrong. My damned foot. Ankle, actually. A fucking tooth had dislodged from the skull last night into my ankle, and I was too fucked to notice. Flies surely did, though. I stumbled to the trickle stream nearby, and dislodged it. Washed it, I continued down the trail. At this point, I reloaded my rifle. It would have come in handy had I now completely shit my pants running away last night. I ate the last nibble of beaver I had and retook my bearings. In the mad dash for my life, I had completely lost the path and, thus, my follower. The map lined up with the surrounding hills and I finally knew where I was. About a mile from the path and another 6 or 7 to the trail, over the hill to my right. I set forth. Unfucking believable. I dipped behind the hill and made my way towards the path. Haste was an understatement. In quick time, I found the path and took the route towards the trail. There was no time for rest, and if I did the math right, I could be at the trail by dusk. Hunger no longer bothered me, yet my thirst was rabid. I stopped at trickles and drank, looking back at every turn. Minutes became hours and hours were miles. The map did not lie, I was only a valley away from the trail. In 15, maybe 20 minutes I was back inside known territory, safer than before but not out of the woods. But I had to hurry, light was dimming and I wanted to be on the trail now. I shimmied down the hillside, ankle sore and body exhausted. Reaching the valley, I had to solve my ankle problem. It was showing signs of early infection, and all I had was hand sanitizer. It had to do. I guess it didn't really matter. So I did. I turned and faced him, little did he know I, too, had a rifle. I raised it and he stopped in his tracks. He now knew I wasn't a mere rabbit in the game of prey. He began to run again. I couldn't stay still, and when his chest was in my sights, I let loose around. My eyes peeked above the scope, his body still sprinting towards me. 100 feet left. I missed. Missed. I racked another round, this time my eye below the scope followed the rail and the sight line. He was close, and I could now see the buttons on his filthy, plaid shirt. I squeezed the trigger and his body, still moving forward, came to an instant dive into the ground. I hit his chest, and blew his heart and a lung out behind him. The other two, still 100 yards behind, saw it and fell to their knees. They cried and wailed, and then stood back up and charged. I didn't hesitate to turn around and book it. The trail climbed, and light was now gone. I was far from exhausted, promoted to near dead. I could see the valley below where I killed the man. I could see his body from where I was, a mere tiny dot in the distance, being dragged away by his sons. Brothers? Who cares? The next intersection on the trail was miles ahead, another day's hike, and this ankle of mine was not getting better. The fiery alcohol had stemmed the infection, but only for now, and had to be reapplied. My watch was broken, and the stars were out. The moon was high, so it must have been past midnight, maybe closer to 1 or 2. I stripped my foot, doused the wound in liquid pain yet again, and then tied a remnant of shirt around it, also soaked in lavender alcohol. The pain was unbearable now. The swelling became larger, but I had to sleep. Fuck the tent, the mosquitoes, the bedding. Being this tired meant nothing to comfort, in fact, they were slowing me down. I passed out against a tree as I watched the 2 dots of fire slowly drag their dead away down in the valley. I woke up hot and cold. The infection was slowly turning for the worse and now, I'm out of sanitizer. Painfully, I stood up. Sore and stiff and tired still, I began my jaunt to the next exit of the trail. The map said 10 or so miles, and so it was. I kept up a decent pace, given my situation. By noon I was halfway there, glad to know they weren't behind me. As far as I knew, that is. I kept up until I heard the crunch of soil ahead of me. Fuck. Nowhere to hide and definitely not able to run. I racked another round and pointed it down the trail. Crunch. 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 In sight, I saw a man. He, too, wearing a hiking pack and supplies. Another hiker. Fuck yes. I lowered my gun, approached him. He said, "Wow, that bad, huh? I just started a few miles back, trail must be very difficult." I didn't laugh. I sat down. "Where am I?" I said, still blinded by the room's clean white walls and bedding. "Phew. Okay. What's going on?" I asked, pointing to the television. "Well, they found the poor fella Marshall. He was eaten by the wildlife, they say. Murder-suicide they think by a serial killer. Killed his brother, his pa, and then blew his head off in a cabin up in them hills." She attested. "They're still digging up bones." "It's Halloween," she yells, happily. "I'm happy you're awake to see it. You've been out for over a month and some change, darling. I've changed your bedding and pot since you've got here. You nearly died half a dozen times, and did die twice. But we got ya, darling. We got ya." She was pleasant. 2 weeks passed. I relearned to walk and to swallow. Doesn't take long for the body to weaken and lose those abilities. I called my boss. Fired. Ends up, nobody knew who I was and didn't care to find me. That's fine, I've no family left, so that adds up. My job is mine with a signed affidavit from the doc about what happened, though, but I doubt I'll return. But it was time to leave, and no car. Shit. My car. I called the tow yards and the sheriff. No known tow of a Mustang since, so it was still there. A few $100s and a pack of booze got me a taxi to the parking lot where my car was still sitting. Dust evenly distributed over it. I thanked the driver, opened my trunk, and threw my gear and hospital clothes in. Of course, it started right up and I couldn't have peeled out of there faster. I arrived home, and thank God. I sat in the car for hours, just happy to be alive. I got out, and went to open my trunk. Inside was my bag and my clothes. I grabbed it, and under them it fell out. A crushed skull, the one I crushed. My face went pale. I rushed back into my car and saw my registration was missing. They knew where I lived. I looked in my mirror to see movement inside my house. I didn't hesitate. I started my engine and tore off.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
I was never the type to join a sorority. My twin sister, Chell, begged me to rush with her the summer before our freshman year approached, but I think she knew deep down I was a lost cause. I was a band geek in high school, and a band geek I intended to remain. Don't get me wrong, this isn't some, not like other girls, bullshit. I was happy for Chell. I even got trashed on celebratory wine coolers with her when she pledged her sorority. We just had different interests. As long as she was happy, that's all that mattered, and I know she felt the same about me. My mom insisted I get back into the swing of things this fall. I decided just to do a half-time course load, mostly focused on finishing up my classes from last semester. I moved into a solo room in the dorms that's more the size of a closet than a real livable space. I didn't mind being alone. I kind of preferred it that way. Alex, though, thought that the solitude was bad for me. Or at least that's what he claimed when he dragged me along to a Greek party last weekend. Chell was popular among the guys in his fraternity, he said, and they'd all been asking about me. Worried. I really didn't want to go, but Alex wouldn't let up. It's what Michelle would want, Louise. Asshole. Even if he was right. I picked at a fraying thread on the hem of my sweater, one of Chell's. It was bright green and haphazardly cropped at the waist in a homemade chop job. It wasn't my style at all, and I never would have worn it before Chell, before she was gone. But that night, wearing it gave me confidence, like she was there with me. You are cordially invited. The Sisters of House Omega welcome you to our fall semester culling. Attendance is mandatory. Only the true of heart will remain until dawn. Will that be you, Alex? Yeah, about a week ago. We're still trying to figure out who's hosting. None of this is creeping you out. What does it mean by culling, anyway? Ah, it's just for dramatics. See who can stick it out all night, you know. Maybe there'll be a prize. And you know what? He grinned and slapped me on the thigh. I slapped him back. We're not gonna pussy out. We'll be the winners, last one standing, just like old times. You with me? I turn into a pumpkin after 2. I'm serious, Lou. Feel sorry for me? I took grim satisfaction seeing the smile slip off his face. I looked out the window and blinked hard once, twice, before clearing my throat. Fine. But the second I'm ready to leave, we're leaving, prize be damned. Alex squeezed my hand and let go. Deal. Alex. The BMW crested a large hill, and I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. A large, white farmhouse stood in the valley below us, a fleet of Land Rovers and Mercedes parked haphazardly in the grass out front. Alex laughed, much more genuinely, this time, and patted my knee as he parked next to a Lexus. I mustered up a smile but didn't say anything. Alex grinned and hopped out of the car. I peered up at the house. The facade was bright and cheery, freshly painted with bright blue shutters flanking the windows, the front door a bubbly yellow. The interior, glimpsed through the open blinds, looked warm and inviting, and I could already feel the bass beat of a shitty pop song vibrating softly in my chest. It all looked pretty innocuous. Maybe I could have a good time. For Alex. For Chell. I rolled my eyes and unbuckled. I socked him on the arm as I climbed out of the car. Let's have some fun or whatever. A few guys ran up, thumping Alex on the back and nodding my way in polite acknowledgement. I was suddenly enveloped in a bear hug by a man whose name I couldn't remember, overwhelmed by a cloud of axe and sour beer breath. A chorus of drunk voices chimed in, booming in the small space of the foyer. Chell. Sour breath let me go to pump his fist in the air, and the boys all started chanting Chell's name. I couldn't decide whether I was endeared or disgusted. Alex flushed and elbowed one of his brothers in the ribs. I was about to give him shit when another, much more slender arm wrapped around my shoulders. Oh, Louise. I didn't know you were going to be here. Anna, the president of Chell's sorority, had to crouch down to hug me. Her words were slurred, her movements languid and clumsy, but her big brown eyes were clear and focused when she pulled back. Anna had always liked Chell, took her under her wing when she first started pledging, and she'd always made me feel welcome in the house. So it was out of the ordinary that she looked concerned, rather than pleased, to see me. Yeah. Alex said it would be cool. I glared in Alex's direction. He just shrugged. Another of the 3 women, gray eyes this time, stepped around Anna in one smooth motion, interrupting her rambling. She grabbed my hand out of Anna's and clasped it between both of her own. Her skin was cool, almost cold, but her grip was soft. I thought I was just rocking a stupid crush at the time, but the world seemed to tilt off center when she bent down to meet me at eye level, voice whisper soft yet strong enough to carry over the house music thumping through the floorboards. "Darling, I'm so sorry about your sister, but I'm really not sure this party is your scene." Anna looked downright panicked by this point, falling all over herself to apologize to the trio. I scanned the crowd and, aside from Alex and a couple of his fraternity brothers, I only saw one other person at the party who looked familiar, a girl from Chell and Anna's sorority, Beth Stacy, who I knew almost nothing about. Chell had never introduced me to her. A distant part of me registered that I should be embarrassed, or, that if Anna was panicking, maybe I should be too. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm, content to follow wherever that voice might lead me. "I don't have a car. Alex drove me." Gray eyes and blue eyes looked at each other for a few minutes, seeming to have a silent conversation. Blue eyes finally sighed and turned back to me. "Well then, I guess there's nothing for it. Want to keep me company in the kitchen?" It didn't even cross my mind to go find Alex. I forgot about Anna's frantic worry from just moments before. I let Blue Eyes take my hand and lead me further into the house. I felt safe while I was with her. A peace I hadn't felt since Chell's death washed over me. The next day, as the memories came back to me in flashes, would realize how off everything was. The whole house had this shimmery glow about it, like something out of a dream. Alex's fraternity brothers and the handful of girls from Chell's sorority drank from seemingly bottomless red Solo cups and danced feverishly in the living room, pressed tightly together in a writhing mass. The rest of the partygoers did shot after shot in the kitchen, a never-ending supply of vodka and tequila flowing freely, poured generously by the mysterious sisters of House Omega. The sisters themselves, each as stunningly gorgeous as the last, stood around the party's periphery, laughing easily at the revelry without actually partaking in any of it themselves. All the while, those piercing eyes swept over the party with a calculated, unsettling intensity. I poured my heart out. I told her about what it was like coming out in high school in a small town in the Midwest, and how supportive Chell always was, even when Alex wigged out and didn't talk to me for a month. I told her about my dreams of becoming a songwriter and making a break for the coast, about how that dream died with Chell because I couldn't imagine anybody else singing my songs but her. I told her about all of my hopes and my desires, about my guilt at moving on to live a life that Chell and I had always planned to live together. I told her about my deepest fear, that I don't know who I am without my twin sister, my other half. That maybe without Chell, I'm nothing at all. The next part gets even fuzzier. At some point, Blue Eyes took my hand and invited me upstairs. Usually this is the part where I lose my cool, especially with a woman so gut-wrenchingly beautiful, but the nerves never came. I felt like I was floating all the way up the stairs, to her room, to the edge of her twin bed. When she finally kissed me and pressed me back into soft sheets, galaxies exploded behind my closed eyes. It didn't go any farther than that, but it was somehow the most intimate experience of my life. I have no idea how long we stayed there, arms around each other, lips sliding together softly, sweetly. At some point, she pulled away to give me another of those deep, searching looks. She opened her mouth as if to speak when, somewhere in the house, a clock started to chime midnight. Her head snapped toward the door. She ducked her head inside. "Wait here, Lou." I shot up in bed just as the dance music cut out with the painfully grating sound of feedback from the speakers. There was a series of terrible, thundering crashes, and a chorus of panicked screams sounded from the partygoers below. "Shit, Alex is down there." I sobbed and made a break for the windows instead. I was just about to take my chances jumping from the second story when a small TV in the corner of the room switched on, static buzzing at the highest volume. Half wild, I thought briefly of chucking the whole TV through the windowpane before the blurred pixels started to resolve into a familiar face. There on the TV, impossibly, was Chell. My escape plan was quickly abandoned. I reached out to the screen with shaking fingers, as though I could reach through the cold glass and touch her face. Chell was at a party in what I recognized as the basement of Alex's fraternity house. She was trashed, drink sloshing over the rim of her cup onto her sweater. The sweater I was wearing that night. Alex stepped into frame, laughing, and poured more liquor into her cup. "Yeah, Chell, she's on her way. Listen, how about we play a game while we wait for her?" "I don't know, Alex, I don't feel so good." Chell swayed on her feet. Alex was practically holding her upright. I stepped forward and barely registered the sick squelch of the rug under my feet. Red soaked the floor and the bottom 18 inches of the wallpaper, splattered in wide strokes on the upper walls and ceiling. A pile of gore that had once been a person slumped at the top of the stairs. A river of blood ran down the center of the staircase, thick and dark, flowing like a grisly red carpet to the open front door. I stepped around mangled limbs and stringy viscera as I made my way carefully down the stairs. My mind was completely numb to the carnage, the sound of Chell's helpless tears still filled my ears. 2 steps from the front door, a faint voice gurgled to my left. Part of me wanted to ignore him. To just walk back out into the night, down County Road 5, back to my tiny, uncomfortable bed in my shitty dorm room, where I would fall asleep and this would all have been a nightmare. "Please, Lou." Movements rigid, I forced myself to turn toward the living room. My breath hitched in spite of my detachment. "I'm sorry, child. You weren't supposed to be here. But we wanted you to understand." Alex looked at me again, pleading. He opened his mouth to speak, but I beat him to it. "He's all yours. The police have no leads. I know they won't find any. I drove back out to County Road 5 a few days ago, after half a week of fielding concerned phone calls from my mom. There's nothing there, just an empty field with an abandoned, decrepit farmhouse rotting in the prairie sun." She helped fill in some of the gaps. "What did you do?" Anna smiled grimly. "My family worships the old gods." I shivered at that, a chill dancing across my skin. I called upon a long-forgotten sisterhood, ancient and hungry. If I could deliver them the guilty parties, they promised they could deliver justice. Her expression softened as she finally looked at me. "You were never supposed to be there, though." "Oh, honey, I am so sorry." "The deed is done." Anna stood up and dusted the grass off of the back of her leggings. "They'll have moved on." Anna looked at me, long and hard, and bit her lip. She nodded to herself, and reached into her purse. "They did ask me to make one last delivery, though." Anna pulled out a very familiar piece of black cardstock, embossed with gilded lettering. She handed it to me. I took it with a trembling hand. "There's no pressure, and no expiration date," Anna said. She started to go, but turned back one last time with a sad, sweet smile. "I really am sorry, Lou. For everything. Chell was the best of us." I waited until her figure faded into the distance to look down at the paper in my hands. It was a new invitation, to me, this time. I thought of Chell, crying and confused, stumbling in a dark basement. I thought of Chell, the last time I'd seen her in life, head thrown back and laughing. I thought of Chell, cold and still in the ground beneath me. I crumpled the invitation in my fist.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I get it. Night eat now.
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.